In fact, it was pretty common in the 1800s and early 20th century for angry mobs to overpower police forces and literally storm jailhouses or even courthouses to snatch those they believed to be the guilty party and have them lynched and tortured. Much of the regional public in the Pearl Bryan case, especially the Bryan family, were dead set on seeing Scott and Alonzo pay for their crimes. There was even an incident at the Newport jailhouse involving a jailbreak where both men had an opportunity to escape with fellow inmates. Scott Jackson and Alonzo Walling were so frightened by the thought of being ripped apart by the public that they willingly stayed in their cell. Finally, on March 20th, the day of reckoning had arrived. The dual hanging of Pearl Bryan's murderers was to be held behind the Newport Campbell County Courthouse on York Street, south of the Taylor Southgate Bridge, for the viewing public to witness. As described by onlookers, Scott Jackson appeared to be defiant in his demeanor, one report saying he stood, quote, erect like an actor. Alonzo Walling, on the other hand, was absolutely terrified, not even remotely at peace with his impending doom. He looked towards his roommate, as if expecting him to say something to get them out of this. But Jackson's last words were as resolved as his disposition, saying, quote, I have only this to say, that I am not guilty of the crime for which I am now compelled to pay the penalty of my life, end quote. By now, Alonzo had completely broken down, his last words being, quote, nothing. Only that you are taking the life of an innocent man, and I will call upon God to witness the truth of what I say, end quote. And at 11:40 a.m., the trapdoor beneath their feet opened, sending the young men falling down with the nooses around their necks. Unfortunately for them, the execution was botched. Whereas hanging is meant to break the condemned's neck from the force of their own weight, there were many incidents where that just didn't happen. This was the case for Alonzo and Scott. They hung helplessly from the ropes, kicking and flailing for several minutes until they each asphyxiated. The deed was done. Pearl Bryan was avenged, her killers spending their final moments in pain and terror, much like the woman they were convicted of killing was. After the execution, Scott and Alonzo's bodies were taken away and buried in unmarked graves to prevent desecration, the gallows quickly being torn down that very same day,